जय राधा। ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकथा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सागन ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभांसदेव प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातां वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरं हरे कृष्ण. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, 8, 34. Actually, um, we are so fortunate that we have Dhruv Maharaj actually um, going to have this called Vishnu Chakri Thakur says Atha Darshanam, face to face darshan with Krishna. We have so many acharyas. What to speak of having darshan? Darshan, they have talked with Krishna, they talk with Krishna, and what to speak of the position of our acharyas that and they're so exalted. And you are also exalted. 4:8:34. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Gunadikan mudam lipsed Anukrosham gunadhamat Maitrim samanad anvichen Natapir abhibhuyate Gunadikan mudam lipsed Anukrosham gunadhamat Maitrim samanad anvichen Natapir abhibhuyate. Gunadhikan mudam lipsed Anukrosham gunadhamat Maitrimam samanat anvichen Natapir abhibhuyate. Gunadhikan mudam lipsed Anukrosham gunadhamat Maitrim samanat anvichen Natapir abhibhuyate. Guna adhikat, one who is more qualified. Mudam, pleasure, one should feel. Anukrosham, compassion. Guna adhamat, one who is less qualified. Maitrim, friendship. Samanat, with an equal. Anvichet, one should desire. Na, not. Tapai, by tribulation. Abhibhuyate, becomes affected. Translation purport by Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate toward him And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Generally, when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. When we find someone less qualified, we deride him. And when we find someone equal, we become very proud of our activities. Again, generally, when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. When we find someone less qualified, we deride him, and when we find someone equal, we become very proud of our activities. These are the causes of all material tribulations. The great sage Narad therefore advised that a devotee should act perfectly. Instead of being envious of a more qualified man, one should be jolly to receive him. Instead of being oppressive to a less qualified man, one should be compassionate toward him, just to raise him to the proper standard. And when one meets an equal, instead of being proud of one's activities before him, one should treat him as a friend. One should also have compassion for the people in general who are suffering due to forgetfulness of Krishna. These important functions will make one happy within this material world. Again, Om Jnanatimirandasya ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परम आनन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरम्. Seek the blessings of all the devotees present. I neither have any qualification nor any realization, but I'm just want to repeat for my own purification whatever I have heard. So seek the blessings of everyone, especially His Graceful Kishore Prabhu and all the assembled devotees. Right? So this is a very wonderful instruction by Narad Muni. Narad Muni is actually speaking for us, for all the living entities in this material world. How can one prosecute devotional service and attain the perfection? His Honest Ranat Maharaj says that hearing and chanting, attachment to hearing and chanting, by hearing and chanting with great enthusiasm, Krishna will personally clean the heart. Param Vijayate Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So Krishna will do, but Maharaj mentioning that how the nature of the material energy is to distract us from the faith that hearing and chanting can do it. So hearing and chanting and practicing the process of Krishna consciousness is very wonderful. Very Krishna consciousness is all very optimistic path, very hopeful path. And at every stage in bhakti, there are so many things we can relish. But the nature of this material world, because the material world is designed to make the living entities forget Krishna, therefore it distracts one from the goal of life. Even if Krishna consciousness is so simple, sometimes Maya may unnecessarily depress someone, including myself, or Maya may unnecessarily inflate someone. See, yesterday's purport was very wonderful actually. It is really amazing actually. In yesterday's purport, this is amazing actually. As long as one is engaged in any kind of activity other than devotional service, it will result in the happiness and distress of this material world. This is a very powerful line. Very powerful line. When we enjoy life in so-called material happiness, it is understood that we are diminishing the resultant actions of our pious activities. And when we are put into suffering, it is to be understood that we are suffering and that we are diminishing the resultant actions of our impious activities. Instead of being attached to the circumstantial happiness and distress resulting from pious or impious activities, if we want to get out of the clutches of these nations, then whatever position we are put in by the will of the Lord, we should accept. Um, this is a very wonderful verse um, in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which speaks about the glories of hearing and chanting, and how if someone simply uh, resorts to hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, whatever may be one's position, one will attain the perfection. One will attain the perfection. Jnane prayas mudapasya namanta eva. That verse, which is actually quoted in the discussion between Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Ramananda Roy quotes this verse, and Mahaprabhu is very pleased because this verse speaks about staying in one's ashram, in one's situation, not changing one's situation, but simply glorifying the activities of the Lord, hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. If one simply stays in one's position and engages in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord with as much enthusiasm as possible, then for sure one will conquer that person who is unconquerable. Ajito Ajita. Pita is Trilokya. So Krishna can be conquered simply by this process of hearing and chanting, and for that matter, all the activities in Krishna consciousness. So this line is very powerful. Instead of being attached to the circumstantial happiness and distress resulting from pious or impious activities, if we want to get out of the clutches of these nations, then whatever position we are put in by the will of the Lord, we should accept. Thus, if we simply surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we shall get out of the clutches of this material existence. It's an amazing purport. There's no comment, nothing required to be said. Our acharyas, Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami, they took birth in they were situated in, you can say, a Muslim association, Muslim affiliation. And when they came into the fold of Lord Chaitanya, they could have very well requested Lord Chaitanya to lift the restriction and allow them to go to Jagannath temple, even Haridas Thakur. But they didn't do that. What did they do? They just accepted, as Prabhupada is saying, they just accepted whatever situation they were put into by whatever. Of course, we understand they are not influenced by karma the way ordinary living entities are, but they just accepted it. So this accepting whatever situation that one is put into by the grace of the Lord is very, very powerful. That results in developing humility, that the most important quality is that results in feeling that connection, feeling that dependence on Krishna. By nature, we're dependent on Krishna. My spiritual master said that how actually we are dependent on Krishna's mercy at every moment. Even for taking a breath, we are dependent on Krishna. For anything, we are dependent on Krishna because Krishna is the one who is behind. Sarva Karana Karana. Krishna is the cause of all causes. Prabhupada said that Krishna is so merciful that if Krishna wanted, Krishna could have put an end to the soul, but Krishna did not. So that's Krishna's power. Whatever material laws, whatever spiritual laws, everything is under Krishna's will because Krishna is the supreme creator, supreme maintainer. And Krishna's will is all powerful. Krishna's will is all powerful and Krishna is supremely independent. Krishna does not have to follow any of the laws, anything. Krishna is Swarat. That's the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. So when one accepts situation that he's put into, then he realizes how much he's dependent on Krishna. And actually, the dissatisfaction and happiness both are mentioned there of this material world, which means ultimately they are inconsequential. Whether I'm happy today because of some material thing or I'm distressed tomorrow because of some material thing, ultimately is inconsequential in the ultimate sense. So, spiritual life means to accept whatever situation we put into and to connect to our eternal position as an eternal servant of Krishna. Jive Swarup Hoy Nitya Krishna Das. Although this is a very basic statement that we hear when we come into Krishna consciousness, but it's a very profound statement given by Shastra. Why? Because serving Krishna is wonderful. Serving Krishna is the greatest joy. And as we go forward in Krishna consciousness, we see that the smallest things, they make so much difference to us. They give so much pleasure to us because that is the nature of bhakti. The nature of bhakti is anything done in bhakti is significant in the eyes of the Lord. So this surrender is very powerful. What is this surrender? Surrender means to accept whatever situation is offered to us by Krishna. That is important. By Krishna. Krishna has personally arranged the situation for me to come closer to him. So when we realize that we're dependent on Krishna, then we realize the happiness that we get, the distress that we get is also dependent on Krishna. Everything is directly dependent on Krishna. Materially, there may be an obstacle, how much materially we can get, like the six Goswamis, Sanatan Rupa Goswami. Materially, if they were to compare themselves with others, that oh, they can go to Jagannath temple, I cannot, then it would result in depression. But of course, they're not conditioned souls. But they teach us that instead of seeing comparing materially, spiritually we can always be encouraged, because Prabhupada says there is no situation that can stop us from making advancement in Krishna consciousness. There is no situation. And there is no qualification to make advancement also. The only thing which it takes is tatra lolyam ekamapi mulyam, just that intense desire, I want to make progress. And then Krishna will make all the arrangement. Whatever arrangement is given to us right now to make progress in bhakti. I'm not speaking even about the external situation, but how much internally we can absorb ourselves. That is arranged by Krishna. That is arranged by Krishna's internal potency. Tyaktva Turnam Asesha Mandalapati Shenim Sahatuchavat. They, six Goswamis, they had nothing of this world. They considered everything as insignificant, they rejected everything of this world, and they simply wore kopin, little cloth to cover their body. But Gopi Bhavara Samrita Abdilahari Kallola Magna. This is their real situation. They were absorbed in the ecstasy of the loving dealings between Krishna and the gopis. Prabhupada says that they were constantly drowning, they were constantly enjoying the waves of that ocean. That is who they really are. So, spiritual life, the purpose of spiritual life, as we make progress, our desires determine what mercy we get. Simple. Whatever is our desire, and if we are simply acting according to that desire, Krishna will definitely fulfill. We see this in our life also, that how much Krishna is truthful. Krishna is very truthful. Krishna is very merciful. So this desire to get absorbed is very important. Very important. That's what Lord Chaitanya taught. What is Lord Chaitanya's life? Lord Chaitanya's life is, pastimes are eternal, but for our learning, for our understanding, we can understand that anything Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did, anything Nityananda Prabhu did, anything Advaita Acharya did, any of the associates did, they were fully absorbed. They were fully absorbed. Raghav Pandit, he took great pleasure in everyday cooking and offering to the deities. Vadacharya Prabhu it reminds me that is one of the associates of Lord Chaitanya called Bhagavad-acharya. So Bhagavad-acharya is a very amazing associate of Lord Chaitanya. Whenever he would recite Bhagavatam, Mahaprabhu would become so ecstatic, and Mahaprabhu would start dancing and dancing for hours, and he would embrace him and he would embrace Bhagavad-acharya. Then Bhagavad-acharya would become stunned, and then Mahaprabhu said, "Go on, go on, go on." And in this way, so many hours passed, and Swarup Damodar and Ramandar Rai had to stop because they understood they don't stop Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu would go on for the rest of eternity. So, Bhagavatam, worshipping the deity, what to speak of the holy people, when Mahaprabhu would see the Yamuna, when Mahaprabhu would see the Ganga, Mahaprabhu would become ecstatic. Mahaprabhu had no consideration. That's a extraordinary example that Mahaprabhu never considered, you never see in Mahaprabhu's pastimes that Mahaprabhu puts any limit on his absorption, that no, now it is not, it is the time to eat, it is the time to sleep. No, Mahaprabhu is fully absorbed. And all of Mahaprabhu's associates are fully absorbed. So we all have to aspire to live in that reality. That is the goal of our life. The goal of our spiritual life, the goal of chanting is to chant. The goal of reading Bhagavatam is to read. The goal of serving the deities is to serve. So that absorption should be our goal in Krishna consciousness. Then we can always derive great inspiration. Ultimately, we live in that absorption. Our absorption is our sphere of existence. So, and Krishna's mercy is what facilitates that absorption, not anything external. Nobody can stop that absorption, and neither nobody can grant that absorption. Just because one may change one situation, one may go here, one may go there, does not mean that one will get absorbed. It is completely dependent on Krishna's mercy. So, if we are always praying for that mercy, always aspiring for that mercy, and realizing, having faith that if this mercy comes, I don't need anything else in my life. If this one mercy comes to be absorbed in anything, then I don't need anything else in my spiritual life. That will solve all my problems. It will not matter, anything material will not matter to me. Because when you're absorbed, like Nam Sankirtan is the best example, when you're absorbed, you forget everything. Everything becomes completely irrelevant, at least at that point in time. So, this verse is speaking about how one can keep oneself satisfied. The previous verse is speaking about keeping oneself satisfied, and this verse is speaking about how can one be satisfied. So, in Krishna consciousness, what is very, very important is that we have this association of devotees. The association of devotees is very, very powerful. We recite every day morning that Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha. That Vaishnavas, they are like desire trees. They are very, very powerful. So we can ask ourselves, we can think that how much mercy am I getting from devotees? So in order to get mercy from devotees in the proper way, Narad Muni is saying how one should act. When one meets a person more qualified, he should be very pleased. I mean, it's a slap on my face. I myself am very externally oriented, and therefore I compare and I criticize day and night. And I pray that beg the blessings of all the devotees so that I can come out of this material consciousness. So when he meets a person more qualified, he should be very pleased. Prabhupada is saying, generally when someone finds someone more qualified, he becomes envious. So this envy is of course material consciousness. How can we overcome envy? We can overcome envy by pleasing. Like suppose we have some senior devotee. We are associating with some senior devotee, some exalted devotee. How can we overcome envy? How can we overcome compare? We can overcome that only when that person become pleased. Because when that person become pleased with us, there is a loving exchange. And when there's a loving exchange, then you don't need material name and fame. Rupa Goswami mentions this actually. Haripashan Prabhu quotes this. That Rupa Goswami mentions, I mean, one of our acharyas mentions, I think Saraswati Thakur mentions, someone mentions, that to overcome this desire for name and fame, loving exchange with devotees is the best. It's the best solution. So the 6 exchanges, giving gifts, accepting gifts, honoring prasad and serving prasad, revealing one's mind and inquiring confidentially. These exchanges are very powerful. Of all these exchanges, what is most powerful is revealing one's mind and hearing confidence. Revealing one's mind means not only about one's anarthas, but actually also about how to go deeper in bhakti. Like if you sit down with anyone and churn Bhagavatam, churn the scripture, and you get some nectar out of it, then you feel very happy actually. You feel very happy. And if you do that regularly, then naturally your material comparison will change because you can see how that person is actually spiritually so inspiring, spiritually is doing so nicely. So instead of becoming envious, you end up glorifying that person, become very pleased with how much that person is making progress. And also you get this realization that this person is spiritually so much qualified because of his activities, of his past activities. So if I also execute properly my current activities, then future also I will be in this consciousness. Like Kolavechar Sridhar. Kolavechar Sridhar, nobody cared for him. He was living in the outskirts. Nobody knew him. The devotees didn't know him, but he was so happy. He was so happy chanting the holy name. So we can learn that when we get this absorption, then we don't need anything else in life. When we find someone equal, we become very proud of our activities. So, friendship, the purpose of friendship is not to broadcast one's glories, but to encourage one another. By encouraging each other to go forward on the path, it's a great help, especially when the mind is disturbed. When the previous karma actually comes into play, this encouragement is very, very wonderful. So the platform of Krishna conscious relationships, friendship should be based on Krishna, Krishna Katha, Krishna Katha, Krishna Katha, Seva, etc. Like the best example is Six Goswami. Six Goswami used to meet regularly and discuss about Krishna. Regularly, regularly. So the best way to maintain, the best way to create a Krishna conscious relationship is to hear and chant together. If we don't hear and chant together, then naturally we will see the material side of the other person. It's natural. It's natural. And then, of course, criticism starts. Aparadh starts. And instead of being oppressive to a less qualified man, one should be compassionate. So this is what preaching means. Actually, this is not so easy. Preaching is not so easy because preaching means to transform someone's heart. How you transform someone's heart? Actually, by your behavior. By your behavior and how much you take shelter of Krishna. Preaching means actually transferring one's realizations of taking shelter of Krishna. Preaching means telling someone that how much happy, how much wonderful it is to surrender to Krishna. That's what preaching actually means. So, in order for this to be successful, one has to be willing to sacrifice. When you're preaching to someone, or when you're trying to become an instrument of Prabhupada's preaching, that's the best way to put it, then one has to be willing to sacrifice for the spiritual upliftment of that person, and one has to be the well-wisher, which means that honestly, I mean, speaking for myself, best standard is one should desire that person to make more progress than oneself. That's the best platform of preaching. That I, by the mercy of Krishna, I am wherever I am, but actually you are more qualified. You are more fortunate. So I want you to make more progress, and I want to learn from you. I need your mercy. Because ultimately in the spiritual world, once everyone becomes Nitya Siddha, everyone's Nitya Siddha, there, there will be no senior and junior. Of course, there is Anugatya, there is a way in which they serve. But everyone in the spiritual world is expert in their own act of devotion, and they are specifically suited for that service. Even the creeper, even the plant, even the flower can render service to Krishna in a way that nobody else can. So everyone has that unique devotion which they can offer. So this is very powerful that to help others grow in bhakti without desiring any name and fame, without desiring any position, without desiring any worship, without desiring any ownership. Oh, later you have to come because I preach to you, so you have to come and hear from me, you have to come and surrender to me. So, without having that, of course, I know nobody here has that mental disposition, but I'm speaking for my own purification. That's very purifying. It's very purifying. So these three things can help one make progress in bhakti without being deviated. And that's what this relationship with the devotee is so wonderful. And actually, the purpose of this relationship with devotees is so that we can internally associate with the moods of the devotees, because bhakti is all about mood. Like Mahaprabhu's mood keeps changing from one mood to another mood. Like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, on one hand, he says, I am lower than the worm in the stool. He says that. And on the other hand, he also says how, by the grace of Nityananda Prabhu, he had such extraordinary darshans of Gopinath, of the gopis, of Radha Govinda, of Radha Madan Mohan, etc. etc. He also explained that how he got so much mercy. So bhakti is all about mood, about feeling. That is the essence of bhakti. But in order to come to that level of association where you can exchange the feeling in bhakti, like Krishna conscious feeling, transferring Krishna conscious feeling, one has to be, and I'm not there, but I'm learning, I'm observing, Kishore Prabhu, and how one can come to that subtler and subtler level of consciousness, spiritual consciousness, so one can recognize that. Rajvari Prabhu, his Rajvihari Prabhu mentioned that how association, when association matures to a particular point, like one can see a devotee belonging to a particular mellow Krishna consciousness, or better to say, one can see a devotee who, in a way that, okay, this person is very expert, or he relishes Srimad Bhagavatam. So he reminds me of such and such devotee. This person is very expert in deity worship. So very much attached to deity worship. So he reminds me of Raga Pandit. This Mataji is very expert in cooking. So when I see her, I'm reminded of Damayanti, Lord Chaitanya, and Raga Pandit's sister. So in this way, gradually, if we see everyone as reminding us of great devotees, then how can we uh, come to the level of just uh, dragging them to the material platform and criticizing them? It's not possible. So one has to aspire to come to this level of association. So Narottam Das Thakur is praying that if I ever take birth again, I desire the association of Ramchandra Kaviraj. Just see like the depth of Sangha, the depth of exchange. Many times we're very much stuck on the external platform. You know, you are from this place, I am from that place, or even, so many external things. But actually, as you go deeper, the internal aspect is so much more relishable, is so much more encouraging, so much more wonderful. So we can aspire to come to that platform by following the footsteps of the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That how expertly they were dealing, how lovingly they were dealing. This we can learn. This Mahaprabhu is very extraordinary in that respect. That Mahaprabhu's exchange with the devotees is very, very special. Very special. We can see that in so many of Mahaprabhu's activities, that how much loving he is towards the devotees. And so there is no disqualification. Bhakti is very, very encouraging. Bhakti is very, very wonderful. Because if you have a simple heart and you do anything in accordance with the instructions of a pure devotee, there is all hope in bhakti. Like even if, yes, actually I want to make a little remark on yesterday, where Bhagavad was mentioned Raghunath Goswami. Actually, His Holiness Haladat Maharaj was saying this, it really touched my heart actually. He said that there is a line actually, Narottam Das Thakur sings, that Narottame Karodaya Apanara Boli. Narottam Das Thakur is praying to his spiritual master that please make me as your own. So Maharaj was mentioning that when you surrender and Krishna accepts you as his own, really, that this is my man, this is mine. So then naturally you will be under Krishna's protection, and Krishna will connect with you, and Krishna wants to connect with you, will connect with Krishna. You'll be always serving Krishna. And bhakti will become so much easier then. So it won't be like, okay, I have to do this service. No, it will be like from within, when Krishna accepts a devotee's surrender, then Krishna is always looking for that devotee, that devotee situated comfortably in Krishna consciousness. So according to the level of acceptance we have, to that extent we can lead our spiritual life. If we are accepted, for example, the Raghunath Das Goswami. So first actually Raghunath Das Goswami met Haridas Thakur. Advaitacharya Haridas Thakur. That was the first association he had. I mean, of course, he is an eternal associate, but that's the first association he had. So what did they give him? Chaitanya Charitamrita speaks that By associating with Advaita Acharya, he attained intense affection for the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. And of course, by Haridas Thakur's association, he attained intense affection for holy name. Then next was, of course, he went to meet Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya asked him to be patient. Next was Nityananda Prabhu. He got Nityananda Prabhu's mercy. He served so many devotees, got Nityananda Prabhu's mercy. And what is the side effect, or what is the consequence of Nityananda Prabhu's mercy? Samsara vasana mora kabe tuchya habe. If one gets Nityananda Prabhu's mercy, he has no attachment to the material world. So once he got Nityananda Prabhu's mercy, then what happened? He went to Puri. And in Puri, what he did is day and night he was engaged in the service of Lord Chaitanya. He was living with Lord Chaitanya under the guidance of Swarup Damodar. This is very important. Under the guidance of Swarup Damodar, because Swarup Damodar knew Mahaprabhu's mind very intimately. And then at the end of his life, he actually, I mean, not at the end, he lived for many years in Radhakund, but then he attained Radhakund. So actually, how much he controlled his senses, I mean, of course, doesn't need to control his senses. His senses are automatically controlled, but how much he practiced austerity, that is actually very external. Very external. The real thing is the attachment. It's like from our understanding, Raghunath Das Goswami is very austere. It's very scary, maybe very depressing to think. But from his perspective, Raghunath Das Goswami is, as an eternal associate of the Lord, he is serving spiritual world. And the pastime is there that one time Raghunath Das Goswami had some stomach upset, and those days the Ayurvedic doctors are very expert, so they said that he has been eating a lot of sweets. And everyone was laughing. They said, this person, this Babaji, he drinks buttermilk once in a week, once in a few days. How can he become sick? And Raghunath Das Goswami was laughing and saying, yeah, I did eat, but I didn't eat here. I ate in the spiritual world. But because of his mercy, Raghunath Das Goswami manifested whatever he ate in his spiritual body. Of course, his body is eternally spiritual, but he manifested that in his quote unquote material body. Of course, it's not material, but for our understanding, to show people that how actually he is living on a different platform of existence. So we have great hope for us in our spiritual life, that if we simply develop this attachment, increase our attachment, and develop the qualification to pray for the qualification to actually become accepted, then that will do everything. Then everything will become very easy. It's just like if we develop affection for Lord Chaitanya, genuine affection, genuine attachment, it will not be difficult for us to follow his instructions. Why? Because he will help us. Just like our spiritual master, for example. It's not that everything our spiritual master says is very wonderful, is very pleasing. But why? Because to some extent, he has accepted us. Therefore, he is helping us. He is helping. Therefore, it is possible to follow. So this is the same principle with everything in bhakti. To the extent that we're accepted, our surrender is accepted, to that extent it becomes easy to fulfill the instruction. I mean, I myself am very far, but it's a great revelation to me actually, that yeah, to the extent that we have attachment, we have internal attachment and we're accepted, then if we're accepted by someone like genuinely, then naturally we'll always be conscious of what they want, what they want, what they want. And even though it may be difficult for us to fulfill the godly perspective or whatever, but we will still try our best to fulfill. And we will fulfill, we'll please them. So this is the secret to success in bhakti, is to have this connection, to cultivate this connection. And this connection does not happen overnight, but it happens by loving service, loving service, loving service. By investing, investing, investing in our surrender, in our service, with the proper mood, the dependence. So, yeah, this is how bhakti is so wonderful, is so hopeful, so ecstatic actually. I'm not speaking from my own realization, but I'm just speaking from the Shastra, that how surrender is so wonderful. So that is the essence of these verses, that if we can have that simplicity, we can cultivate that surrender, then we can always be conscious that Krishna is watching me. More than anyone else, Krishna is watching. That's also very encouraging. Because Krishna knows a permutation combination of how we're performing bhakti. And Krishna will reciprocate. For sure. Even if you do 99% wrong and 1% correct, Krishna will reciprocate for that 1% correct. That's for sure. So bhakti is very hopeful, is very wonderful. We don't have to take any unnecessary austerities. It will happen naturally. All we have to do is we have to try our best to fulfill whatever instructions given to us by Srila Prabhupada. We don't have to imitate. That's why Prabhupada says imitation is dangerous. We don't have to imitate, we just follow. And from inside, as we progress, we'll come to understand what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. If we are doing something that we should not be doing, or we can do something, we should be doing something which we are not, Krishna will, within the heart, Krishna will, some way Krishna will communicate to us that you should be following this level of Krishna consciousness. Why you are not following? So that is the best. That is the best platform. And actually, yeah, it's not easy, but the great souls teach us that if one can train oneself not to take any happiness in material things, because in bhakti, everything is spiritual. Everything can be spiritualized, including prasad. So, since we have this wonderful positive alternative, there's no need to take shelter of material happiness. There's no need to take shelter. So, if we train ourselves not to take shelter, then that will help us a lot in our Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, the imprints of material happiness and distress in this world will distract us from bhakti, will distract us from the faith that Krishna bhakti koile sarva karma krita. By serving Krishna, I can be so happy. So that faith, if it becomes distracted or diluted or confused, that leads to our weakness in bhakti, our lack of determination in bhakti. Like we all have this experience, right? We wake up in the morning. It is just that thought, a split of a thought, should I go or not? But in order to, behind that thought is actually that feeling. If we feel that I should go, I want to go, although it may be intellectual, but even to the slightest extent, some feeling is there. That feeling is what drives us, that I should go. So the more and more we practice ahetuki apratihata as much as possible, without having any material motive, and we continuously practice bhakti, pure activities of bhakti only, then that determination to practice pure devotion, to practice the principle of pure devotion will become stronger and stronger. It will become easier and easier and easier to do. And actually, We don't have to do anything special. Like you see our spiritual masters, they do the same thing. They do the same chanting, they do the same reading, hearing. They don't do anything like extraordinary. But what is the difference? Is their consciousness, their absorption, their depth. So that's the only thing which has to change. Is the depth, increasing the depth of doing what we're doing. Like pure devotees, when they do arti, they're also doing arti, but they're seeing, they're experiencing something different. They're also chanting the same holy name, but they're experiencing something different. They're experiencing a deeper and deeper version of spiritual reality. So, Prabhupada has created a perfect linking arrangement where we can link everything in this material world to the spiritual world, and eventually, by Prabhupada's mercy, we can live in the spiritual world even though we in this material world. Completely live in the spiritual world, being completely untainted by this material world simply by his mercy, simply by Guru's mercy. So yeah, it's a very encouraging verse, very extraordinary verse. So this is what I could speak. Please forgive me if I spoke beyond my realization or my adhikar. Very fallen. Beg for all of your mercy. Vanshakrupatarubhya Kapasindubhya Evacha Patsanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavabhyo. Anyone has any question or comment? Online, anyone has any question or comment? Correction?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Very nice class, Prabhuji. Very, very nice class today. Very wonderful. You spoke so many points encouraging and telling how to do bhakti properly in the right consciousness. I especially liked the point in the beginning of the class you mentioned how much mercy you will get is directly related to your desires. So that was a very deep point, Prabhuji. I felt that is a good, that can be a good benchmark to understand where we are heading in our bhakti. So thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Yeah, actually, it may not be immediately experienced, but in course of time, we can see that Krishna fulfills our desires, especially the pure desires to increase our taste in chanting, to increase our taste in hearing. Krishna fulfills those desires. So, yeah, that's why prayers are very powerful. Prayers and acting in the mood of the prayer. That's why our acharyas, like, for example, humility. Right? Humility, I want to be humble, maybe a prayer. But how should we act? How should we cultivate that humility? Our acharyas explain through their bhajans. So, by following in their footsteps and cultivating, especially trying to cultivate those moods, right? So, actually, the best essence of humility is actually, I mean, I'm not qualified to speak this, but for my own purification, the best essence of humility is that any obstacle in my Krishna consciousness is my greatest pleasure. Any obstacle which comes in my Krishna consciousness, whatever obstacle it may be, it's my greatest pleasure. Why? Because this obstacle is helping me to take greater shelter of Krishna, to become more and more humble. So yeah, like this, our acharyas moods are incredible. And they've expressed these moods.
This is very hard, Prabhuji.
Now, for me, it's also very hard, but it's inspiring that we have such acharyas who have given such moods that we can cultivate, can aspire to cultivate someday. Maybe we'll be able to cultivate 1%, 2%. But yeah, it's possible. I mean, they have given to us, they have spoken. Why? So that we can follow
Mm.
by their mercy. Like I'll just give one 30-minute example of this. that sometimes body may cause so much trouble. Body may not allow us to do bhakti. But if we somehow we overcome our body limitation and we prosecute devotional service, we see how much mercy, we can get actually. That how much wonderful it is. And then we don't see that bodily problem you know as an obstacle, but then we see it like this. Oh, maybe for me to get rid of my bad karma that had to happen. But wow, by prosecuting devotional service, how much happiness Krishna gave me, how much connection Krishna gave me. It was so satisfying. So we remember in that way. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada.